The reason why we are live at 4:17 a.m. here Central in the United States of America at InfoWars World Headquarters in Austin, Texas, is because Trump and Putin are about to meet in Helsinki. This is President Trump arriving in Helsinki about an hour ago, about 2 hours ago here. President Trump arriving in the motorcade. This would be 9:43 local time there. And this would have been about 2 o'clock in the morning here in Austin, Texas. So you can see here the B-roll of Trump getting out of the motorcade and landing in Helsinki. There is Melania stepping out with a gold jacket, gold shoes, and there is the gold-haired president himself arriving in Finland just mere hours ago. There he is meeting the president of Finland, shaking hands with the president and the president's wife. There are the formalities there. A nice bouquet of flowers, snap the cameras, shake the hands, big smile, get the picture, and now they move on. So we are going to be monitoring this live for you. A press conference is set to begin. I believe it's supposed to be 5 o'clock Central here local, which is noon there, guys. Is that noon Helsinki time? Okay, so 1:15 local in Helsinki would be about 5:15 local here in Austin, Texas. And again, we're just rolling the footage right now of President Trump arriving, meeting the president of Finland, that is Donald Trump, and the First Lady Melania Trump, arriving there. So now let's just real quick, or I'll tell you what, should we go? Let's go to the clip we have of them meeting, a brief audio clip here. This is the president of Finland just meeting with the president of the United States, Donald Trump. And after they exchanged the formalities, the shaking of hands, the pictures, they exchanged some brief pleasantries and had a quick word for the media. Let's go to that.
But I appreciated your support and your help. And I will say again, you've treated us beautifully. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, what's your message to President Putin today?
We'll be seeing him in a little while.
What are you going to say to him?
We'll do just fine. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'm from Finnish press. What was the last choice to collect Finland as a meeting?
Well, we think Finland's a great country. We had a fantastic meeting a few days ago. Some of you were there. It was a very successful meeting. I think NATO has never been more together. People are now agreeing to pay, and we were having a lot of problem with a lot of people not paying, as the president will tell you. And they're paying more rapidly, and I think NATO's probably never been stronger than it is today. So we had a fantastic meeting, and now we're capping it with being in Finland, and the hospitality has been fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, so it looked like there with President Trump, you had Mike Pompeo, John Bolton, and Melania Trump, as well as a couple other members of President Trump's administration. Of course, sitting down, I would imagine, to a breakfast there with the president of Finland and what is his administration. So in about an hour here, President Trump is set to deliver a press conference. I believe that President Putin will be present for that as well. We will be carrying that live as we're looking at, it appears to be a presidential motorcade in Helsinki. And at this time, you are looking at the door to Vladimir Putin's jumbo jet. You can see the motorcade and the security pulling up right there as Vladimir Putin is about to step foot off of his jumbo jet and into his limousine that will then drive him to the press conference with President Trump that was officially set to be at 5:15 a.m. here local. That's 1:15 in Finland. And I imagine that timetable is going to be a little bit delayed, but that is the official timetable that they're still going to be going by. So again, we are just monitoring the activities here in Helsinki. President Trump has already arrived. We had that footage earlier with Melania, and we are now waiting the arrival, or I should say, the reveal, if you will, of President Putin stepping off the jumbo jet, getting into the motorcade, and then heading to the destination, which will be the location of the press conference between Trump and Putin before they begin their summit, which, of course, has the deep state in a total panic and the Democrats in a total panic. I'm not really sure what to expect from the conclusion of this, but I can tell you that the Democrats and the deep state are going to be panicked the entire time. They don't control Vladimir Putin, and they don't control Donald Trump, and so they have no idea what they could be discussing, and that has them totally panicked. Speaking of being totally panicked, as President Putin is now stepping off the jumbo jet, there he is right there, coming down the roll-up stairs and approaching the motorcade. Right there you have President Putin shaking hands and doing the grandiose ceremonial entry into the limousine as part of the motorcade that will drive him to the summit, where there will be a press conference between Putin and Trump, and we will go from there, of course, bringing you all of this live coverage. Vladimir Putin getting a little more comfortable here already, just after stepping off of the airplane. So again, we are going to be with you covering this and documenting all of this for you without the twist and taint and smudging of the facts and the information that you get from about 90% of media outlets now in America, at least 90% of establishment media outlets in America. So right now you're just in the presidential palace. In fact, guys, see if you can, maybe we can find out the official name of that building. But regardless, you see John Bolton and some of Trump's team there as they are preparing for the opening of the summit here. And, you know, I just want to say this as we are live covering this for you here at InfoWars. I was monitoring the television news, and this goes across the board. I realize that not all TV news is the same, but for this talking point, it pretty much is. I was monitoring the TV news feeds while we were playing that old interview here, as I'm trying to get as much intel and to figure out what's going on as possible. And I realized why it's so important for InfoWars to do this. You know, some people would be like, well, why are you coming in here in the morning to do this? There's not much to see. There's not much to talk about. It is what it is, you know, whatever. Well, no, we have to do this, and we have to cover this, and we have to document this, because we don't go off talking points. President Trump and President Putin are now about to sit down as they are posing for a photo op here in Helsinki, Finland. They are at the presidential palace. Guys, can we get audio of this? Let's see if they are asking Trump and Putin questions right now as they are about to begin the Trump-Putin summit at the presidential palace in Helsinki, Finland. What is the audio status of this feed right now? Okay, it's all right. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. I know. We're doing this in live time. But it's important that we do this because we don't have the fake news twist. We don't have talking points that are just meant to fill time. We're trying to bring you what's really going on. So I'd imagine, as it looks like President Putin is speaking right now, I would imagine the media is beginning to pepper them with questions. Of course, it was President Putin that was in Moscow just yesterday, not even 24 hours ago, for the World Cup final ceremony, where he awarded the World Cup trophy to France, the French national soccer team. So very busy weekend for President Putin. And of course, President Trump, always busy, never stops working for America. So what you're seeing here is the beginning of the President Trump, President Putin summit in Helsinki, Finland. Now, we're working on trying to get audio from President Trump and President Putin right now, as it appears that they are taking questions from the media. I'm not sure exactly if this is the media questioning them or some official representation from Finland or something like that, but you've already had President Putin speak. President Trump is speaking now as the historic, what will surely be historic, Trump-Putin Summit, Helsinki, Finland, 2018. It is 6:12 here local. It is 2:12 p.m. in Helsinki, Finland. And you can see that they have begun. Let's go live to the audio now.
I think we have great opportunities together as two countries that, frankly, we have not been getting along very well for the last number of years. I've been here not too long, but it's getting close to 2 years. But I think we will end up having an extraordinary relationship. I hope so. I've been saying, and I'm sure you've heard over the years, and as I campaigned, that getting along with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing.
У наших двух стран есть огромная возможность для того, чтобы наладить наши взаимоотношения. На протяжении нескольких лет эти отношения не были плохие, где-то около 2 лет. Но я думаю, что есть возможность, чтобы эти отношения между нашими странами стали чрезвычайно нехорошими. Я во время своей предвыборной кампании говорила о том, что ладить с Россией сделать нехорошо.
And I really think the world wants to see us get along. We are the two great nuclear powers. We have 90% of the nuclear, and that's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. And I think we hopefully can do something about that, because it's not a positive force, it's a negative force. So we'll be talking about that, among other things.
Now, this is significant because it's the Democrat Party and the corporate media trying to stop the United States and Russia from having a good relationship. If you really want world peace, you want the United States and Russia at peace. So why are the Democrats and the corporate press trying to sabotage any good faith negotiations or good faith relationship with Trump and Putin?
And with that, the world awaits, and I look forward to our personal discussion, which I think begins now, and then we're going to meet our whole team. You have quite a few representatives on I do, and we all have a lot of questions, and hopefully we'll come up with answers, most importantly. It's great to be with you.
Oh my God. The globalists are panicking right now.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. It's all you need to know. And just like this story with Anthony Bourdain, just like this story. Is that live right now? Do we have audio of this? We've got a crazed protester here. All right. Okay. We don't have audio, so I'll do a play-by-play if I can. I don't know what's going on. So we're about to have the Trump-Putin press conference here, and someone in what appeared to be the media scrum was holding up some sign. All I saw on the sign was nuclear. So I don't know what the protest was about or what the sign said, but the protester is being escorted out of the presidential palace right now, and he's fighting his way out. But about 10 men in suits went ahead and took care of that. Anyway, before that interruption, and now here we are after the working launch, President Trump and President Putin going live in a joint press conference. Let's go live.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you so much. Shall we start working, I guess? Distinguished Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, negotiations with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, took place in a frank and business-like atmosphere. I think we can call it a success and a very fruitful round of negotiations. We carefully analyzed the current status, the present and the future of the Russia-United States relationship, key issues of the global agenda. It's quite clear to everyone that the bilateral relationship are going through a complicated stage, and yet those impediments, the current tension, the tense atmosphere, essentially have no solid reason behind it. The Cold War is a thing of past. The era of acute ideological confrontation of the two countries is a thing of a remote past, is a vestige of the past. The situation in the world changed dramatically. Today, both Russia and the United States face a whole new set of challenges. Those include a dangerous maladjustment of mechanisms for maintaining international security and stability, regional crises, the creeping threats of terrorism and transnational crime. It's the snowballing problems in the economy, environmental risks, and other sets of challenges. We can only cope with these challenges if we join the ranks and work together. Hopefully, we will reach this understanding with our American partners. Today's negotiations reflected our joint wish with President Trump to redress this negative situation in the bilateral relationship, outline the first steps for improving this relationship to restore the acceptable level of trust and going back to the previous level of interaction on all mutual interests issues. As major nuclear powers, we bear special responsibility for maintaining international security. I deem it vital, and we mentioned this during the negotiations, it's crucial that we fine-tune the dialogue on strategic stability and global security and non-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. We submitted our American colleagues a note with a number of specific suggestions. We believe it necessary to work together further on to interact on the disarmament agenda, military and technical cooperation. This includes the extension of the strategic offensive arms limitation treaty. It's the dangerous situation with the global American anti-missile defense system. It's the implementation issues with the INF treaty. And of course, the agenda of non-placement of weapons in space. We favor the continued cooperation
Once again,
in
Owen
counterterrorism
Schroyer here for
and maintaining
Infowars.com.
cybersecurity.
We are bringing you live coverage
And
of
I'd like
the
to point out
Trump
specifically
Putin
that our
summit
special
in
services
Helsinki,
are
Finland.
cooperating quite successfully together, brought to a systemic framework. I reminded President Trump about the suggestion to re-establish the working group on anti-terrorism. We also mentioned a plethora of regional crises. It's not always that our postures dovetail exactly, and yet the overlapping and mutual interests abound. We have to look for points of contact and interact closer in a variety of international fora. Clearly, we mentioned the regional crisis, for instance, Syria. As far as Syria is concerned, the task of establishing peace and reconciliation in this country could be the first showcase example of the successful joint work. Russia and the United States apparently can act proactively and assume the leadership in this issue. And organize the interaction to overcome humanitarian crisis and help Syrian refugees to go back to their homes. In order to accomplish this level of successful cooperation in Syria, we have all the required components. Let me remind you that both Russian and American military have acquired a useful experience of coordination of their action, established the operational channels of communication, which permitted to avoid dangerous incidents and unintentional collisions in the air and in the ground.
This is very key.
Also, crushing terrorists in the southwest of Syria, the south of Syria, should be brought to the alliance with the Treaty of 1974 about the separation of forces, separation of forces of Israel and Syria. This will bring peace to Golan Heights and bring a more peaceful relationship between Syria and Israel, and also to provide security of the state of Israel.
Wow.
Mr. President paid special attention to the issue during today's negotiations, and I would like to confirm that Russia is interested in this development and this will act accordingly. Thus far, we will make a step toward creating a lasting peace in compliance with the respective resolutions of Security Council, for instance, the resolution 338. We're glad that the Korean Peninsula issue is starting to resolve. To a great extent, it was possible thanks to the personal engagement of President Trump, who opted for dialogue instead of confrontation. We also mentioned our concern about the withdrawal of the United States from the JCPOA. Well, our U.S. counterparts are aware of our posture. Let me remind you that thanks to the Iranian nuclear deal, Iran became the most controlled country in the world. It's submitted to the control of IAEA. It effectively ensures the exclusively peaceful nature of Iranian nuclear program and strengthens the non-proliferation regime. While we discussed the internal Ukrainian crisis, we paid special attention to the bona fide implementation of Minsk agreements by Kiev. At the same time, the United States could be more decisive in nudging the Ukrainian leadership and encourage it to work actively in this. We paid more attention to economic ties and economic cooperation. It's clear that both countries, the businesses of both countries, are interested in this. American delegation was one of the largest delegations on the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. It featured over 500 representatives of American businesses. We agreed, me and President Trump, we agreed to create a high-level working group that would bring together captains of Russian and American business. After all, entrepreneurs and businessmen know better how to articulate this successful business cooperation. We'll let them think and make their proposals and suggestions in this regard. Once again, President Trump mentioned the issue of the so-called interference of Russia in the American elections, and I had to reiterate things I said several times, including during our personal contacts, that the Russian state has never interfered and is not going to interfere into internal American affairs, including election process. Any specific material, if such things arise, we are ready to analyze together. For instance, we can analyze them through the joint working group on cybersecurity, the establishment of which we discussed during our previous contacts. And clearly, it's past time we restore our cooperation in the cultural area, in the humanitarian area. As far as I think you know that recently we hosted the American Congressman delegation, and now it's perceived and portrayed almost as a historic event, although it should have been just a current affairs, just the business as usual. And in this regard, we mentioned this proposal to the President. We have to think about the practicalities of our cooperation, but also about the rationale, the underlying logic of it. And we have to engage experts on bilateral relationship who know history and the background of our relationship. The idea is to create an expert council that would include political scientists, prominent diplomats and former military experts on both countries who would look for points of contact between two countries. That would look for ways on putting the relationship on the trajectory of growth. In general, we are glad with the outcome of our first full-scale meeting, because previously we only had a chance to talk briefly on international fora. We had a good conversation with President Trump, and I hope that we start to understand each other better, and I'm grateful to Donald for it. Clearly, there are some challenges left when we were not able to clear all the backlog, but I think that we made the first important step in this direction. And in conclusion, I want to point out that this atmosphere of cooperation is something that we are especially grateful for to our Finnish hosts. We're grateful for Finnish people and Finnish leadership for what they've done. I know that we've caused some inconvenience to Finland, and we apologize for it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I have just concluded a meeting with President Putin on a wide range of critical issues for both of our countries. We had direct, open, deeply productive dialogue. Went very well. Before I begin, I want to thank President Niinistö of Finland for graciously hosting today's summit. President Putin and I were saying how lovely it was and what a great job they did. I also want to congratulate Russia and President Putin for having done such an excellent job in hosting the World Cup. It was really one of the best ever, and your team also did very well. It was a great job. I'm here today to continue the proud tradition of bold American diplomacy. From the earliest days of our republic, American leaders have understood that diplomacy and engagement is preferable to conflict and hostility. A productive dialogue is not only good for the United States and good for Russia, but it is good for the world. The disagreements between our two countries are well known, and President Putin and I discussed them at length today. But if we're going to solve many of the problems facing our world, then we're going to have to find ways to cooperate in pursuit of shared interests. Too often in both recent past and long ago, we have seen the consequences when diplomacy is left on the table. We have also seen the benefits of cooperation. In the last century, our nations fought alongside one another in the Second World War. Even during the tensions of the Cold War, when the world looked much different than it does today, the United States and Russia were able to maintain a strong dialogue. But our relationship has never been worse than it is now. However, that changed as of about 4 hours ago. I really believe that. Nothing would be easier politically than to refuse to meet, to refuse to engage, but that would not accomplish anything. As president, I cannot make decisions on foreign policy in a futile effort to appease partisan critics or the media or Democrats who want to do nothing but resist and obstruct. Constructive dialogue between the United States and Russia affords the opportunity to open new pathways toward peace and stability in our world. I would rather take a political risk in pursuit of peace than to risk peace in pursuit of politics. As president, I will always put what is best for America and what is best for the American people. During today's meeting, I addressed directly with President Putin the issue of Russian interference in our elections. I felt this was a message best delivered in person. Spent a great deal of time talking about it, and President Putin may very well want to address it and very strongly, because he feels very strongly about it, and he has an interesting idea. We also discussed one of the most critical challenges facing humanity, nuclear proliferation. I provided an update on my meeting last month with Chairman Kim on the denuclearization of North Korea, and after today, I am very sure that President Putin and Russia want very much to end that problem, going to work with us, and I appreciate that commitment. The President and I also discussed the scourge of radical Islamic terrorism. Both Russia and the United States have suffered horrific terrorist attacks, and we have agreed to maintain open communication between our security agencies to protect our citizens from this global menace. Last year, we told Russia about a planned attack in St. Petersburg, and they were able to stop it cold. They found them, they stopped them, there was no doubt about it. I appreciated President Putin's phone call afterwards to thank me. I also emphasized the importance of placing pressure on Iran to halt its nuclear ambitions and to stop its campaign of violence throughout the area, throughout the Middle East. As we discussed at length, the crisis in Syria is a complex one. Cooperation between our two countries has the potential to save hundreds of thousands of lives. I also made clear that the United States will not allow Iran to benefit from our successful campaign against ISIS. We have just about eradicated ISIS in the area. We also agreed that representatives from our national security councils will meet to follow up on all of the issues we addressed today and to continue the progress we have started right here in Helsinki. Today's meeting is only the beginning of a longer process, but we have taken the first steps toward a brighter future and one with a strong dialogue and a lot of thought. Our expectations are grounded in realism, but our hopes are grounded in America's desire for friendship, cooperation, and peace. And I think I can speak on behalf of Russia when I say that also. President Putin, I want to thank you again for joining me for these important discussions and for advancing open dialogue between Russia and the United States. Our meeting carries on a long tradition of diplomacy between Russia, the United States, for the greater good of all. And this was a very constructive day. This was a very constructive few hours that we spent together. It's in the interest of both of our countries to continue our conversation, and we have agreed to do so. I'm sure we'll be meeting again in the future, often, and hopefully we will solve every one of the problems that we discussed today. So, again, President Putin, thank you very much.
Господа президенты, сейчас журналисты.
Distinguished presidents, now the journalists would have a chance to ask two questions, sets of questions each. First, the Russian journalist will ask the question. Please give your affiliation. Good afternoon. My name is
Okay,
Alexei
so
Meshkov,
the media is now asking Trump and
Interfax
Putin
Information
questions.
Agency. I have a question to President Trump. During your recent European tour, you've mentioned that the implementation of the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline makes Europe a hostage of Russia, and you suggested that you could free Europe from this by supplying American LNG. But this cold winter actually showed that the current mechanism of supply of fuel to Europe is quite viable. At the same time, as far as I know, US had to buy even Russian gas for Boston. I have a question. The implementation of your idea has a political tinge to it, or is it a practical one? Because there will be a gap formed in the supply and demand mechanism. And the first, it's the consuming countries who will fall into this gap. And the second question, before the meeting with President Putin, you called him an adversary, a rival, and yet you expressed hope that you will be able to bring this relationship to a new level. Did you manage to do this?
Actually, I called him a competitor, and a good competitor he is. And I think the word competitor is it's a compliment. I think that we will be competing when you talk about the pipeline. I'm not sure necessarily that it's in the best interests of Germany or not, but that was a decision that they made. We'll be competing. As you know, the United States is now, or soon will be, but I think it actually is right now the largest in the oil and gas world. So we're going to be selling LNG, and we'll have to be competing with the pipeline. And I think we'll compete successfully, although there is a little advantage locationally. So I just wish them luck. I mean, I did. I discussed with Angela Merkel in pretty strong tones, but I also know where they're all coming from. And they have a very close source. So we'll see how that all works out. But we have lots of sources now, and the United States is much different than it was a number of years ago when we weren't able to extract what we can extract today. So today we're #1 in the world at that, and I think we'll be out there competing very strongly. Thank you very much.
If I may, I throw in some 2 cents. We talked to Mr. President, including this subject as well. We are aware of the stance of President Trump, and I think that we, as a major oil and gas power, and the United States is a major oil and gas power as well, we could work together on regulation of international markets, because neither of us is actually interested in the plummeting of the prices. And the consumers will suffer as well, and the consumers in the United States will suffer as well, and the shale gas production will suffer. Because beyond a certain price bracket, it's no longer profitable to produce gas. But nor we are interested in driving prices up, because it will drain juices, life juices from all other sectors of the economy, from machine building, etc. So we do have space for cooperation here. That's the first thing. Then about the Nord Stream 2. Mr. President voiced his concerns about the possibility of disappearance of transit through Ukraine, and I reassured Mr. President that Russia stands ready to maintain this transit. Moreover, we stand ready to extend this transit contract that is about to expire next year, in case if the dispute between the economic entities will be settled in the Stockholm Arbitration Court.
This goes to Jeff Mason from Reuters.
Thank you. Mr. President, you tweeted this morning that it's U.S. foolishness, stupidity, and the Mueller probe that is responsible for the decline in U.S. relations with Russia. Do you hold Russia at all accountable for anything in particular? And if so, what would you consider them that they are responsible for?
Yes, I do. I hold both countries responsible. I think that the United States has been foolish. I think we've all been foolish. We should have had this dialogue a long time ago, a long time, frankly, before I got to office. And I think we're all to blame. I think that the United States now has stepped forward along with Russia, and we're getting together, and we have a chance to do some great things, whether it's nuclear proliferation in terms of stopping, because we have to do it. Ultimately, that's probably the most important thing that we can be working on. But I do feel that we have both made some mistakes. I think that the probe is a disaster for our country. I think it's kept us apart. It's kept us separated. There was no collusion at all. Everybody knows it. People are being brought out to the fore. So far that I know, virtually none of it related to the campaign, and they're going to have to try really hard to find somebody that did relate to the campaign. That was a clean campaign. I beat Hillary Clinton easily, and frankly, we beat her, and I'm not even saying from the standpoint, we won that race, and it's a shame that there can even be a little bit of a cloud over it. People know that, people understand it, but the main thing, and we discussed this also, is zero collusion. And it has had a negative impact upon the relationship of the two largest nuclear powers in the world. We have 90% of nuclear power between the two countries. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous what's going on with the probe.
For President Putin, if I could follow up as well, why should Americans and why should President Trump believe your statement that Russia did not intervene in the 2016 election, given the evidence that U.S. intelligence agencies have provided? And will you consider extraditing the 12 Russian officials that were indicted last week by a U.S. grand jury?
Well, I'm going to let the president answer the second part of that question. But as you know, the whole concept of that came up perhaps a little bit before, but it came out as a reason why the Democrats lost an election, which, frankly, they should have been able to win because the Electoral College is much more advantageous for Democrats, as you know, than it is to Republicans. We won the Electoral College by a lot, 306 to 223, I believe. And that was a well-fought battle. We did a great job. And frankly, I'm going to let the president speak to the second part of your question. But just to say it one time again, and I say it all the time, there was no collusion. I didn't know the president. There was nobody to collude with. There was no collusion with the campaign. And every time you hear all of these, 12 and 14, it's stuff that has nothing to do. And frankly, they admit these are not people involved in the campaign. But to the average reader out there, they're saying, well, maybe that does. It doesn't. And even the people involved, some perhaps told misstories, although in one case the FBI said there was no lie. There was no lie. Somebody else said there was.
He's talking about Mike Flynn.
We ran a brilliant campaign, and that's why I'm president. Thank you.
As to who is to be believed and to who is not to be believed, you can trust no one if you take this. Where did you get this idea that President Trump trusts me or I trust him? He defends the interest of the United States of America, and I do defend the interest of the Russian Federation. We do have interests that are common. We are looking for points of contact. There are issues where our postures diverge, and we are looking for ways to reconcile our differences, how to make our effort more meaningful. We should not proceed from the immediate political interests that guide certain political powers in our countries. We should be guided by facts. Could you name a single fact that would definitively prove the collusion? This is utter nonsense. Just like the president recently mentioned. Yes, the public at large in the United States had a certain perceived opinion of the candidates during the campaign, but there's nothing particularly extraordinary about it. That's a usual thing. President Trump, when he was a candidate, he mentioned the need to restore the Russia-US relationship, and it's clear that a certain part of American society felt sympathetic about it, and different people could express their sympathy in different ways. But isn't that natural? Isn't it natural to be sympathetic towards a person who is willing to restore the relationship with our country, who wants to work with us? We heard the accusations about the Concord country. Well, as far as I know, this company hired American lawyers, and the accusations doesn't have a fighting chance in the American courts. So there's no evidence when it comes to the actual facts. So we have to be guided by facts and not by rumors. Now, let's get back to the issue of these 12 alleged intelligence officers of Russia. I don't know the full extent of the situation, but the President Trump mentioned this issue, and I will look into it. So far, I can say the following. The things that, off the top of my head, we have an existing agreement between the United States of America and the Russian Federation, an existing treaty that dates back to 1999, the mutual assistance on criminal cases. This treaty is in full effect. It works quite efficiently. On an average, we initiate about 150 criminal cases upon requests from foreign states. For instance, the last year, there was one extradition case upon the request sent by the United States. So this treaty has specific legal procedures. We can offer that the appropriate commission headed by Special Attorney Mueller, he can use this treaty as a solid foundation and send an official request to us so that we would interrogate, we would hold a questioning of these individuals who he believes are privy to some crimes. And our law enforcement are perfectly able to do this questioning and send the appropriate materials to the United States. Moreover, we can meet you halfway, we can make another step. We can actually permit official representatives of the United States, including the members of this very commission headed by Mr. Mueller, we can let them into the country and they will be present at this questioning. But in this case, there's another condition. This kind of effort should be a mutual one. Then we would expect that the Americans would reciprocate and they would question officials, including the officers of law enforcement and intelligence services of the United States, whom we believe who have something to do with illegal actions on the territory of Russia. And we have to request the presence of our law enforcement. For instance, we can bring up Mr. Browder in this particular case. Business associates of Mr. Browder have earned over $1.5 billion in Russia. They never paid any taxes, neither in Russia nor in the United States. And yet the money escaped the country. They were transferred to the United States. They sent huge amount of money, $400 million, as a contribution to the campaign of Hillary Clinton. Well, that's their personal case. It might have been legal, the contribution itself, but the way the money was earned was illegal. So we have a solid reason to believe that some intelligence officers accompanied and guided these transactions. So we have an interest of questioning them. But we can that could be a first step, and we can also extend it.
This is key.
Options abound.
This is key.
And they all can be found in an appropriate legal framework.
And did you direct any of your officials to help him do that?
Да, я хотел, чтобы он выиграл.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because he talked about bringing the U.S.-Russia relationship back to normal.
Продолжаем. Я думаю, вполне вопросы 3 может задать кто-то из российского пула.
I think there can be 3 questions from the Russian pool. Russia Today, you have the floor. Thank you so much. Good evening to everyone. My name is Ilya Petrenko, RT TV channel.
In English. Mr. President, would you please go into the details of possibly any specific arrangements for the U.S. to work together with Russia in Syria, if any of these kind of arrangements were made today or discussed? И если позволите, Владимир Владимирович, тоже вопрос на...
My question to President Putin in Russian. Since we brought up the issue of football several times, I used the football language. Mr. Pompeo mentioned that when we talk about the Syrian cooperation, the ball is in the Syrian court. Mr. Putin, in the Russian court, is it true? And how would you use this fact, the having the ball?
Well, I guess I'll answer the first part of the question. We've worked with Israel long and hard for many years, many decades. I think we've never has any country been closer than we are. President Putin also is helping Israel, and we both spoke with Bibi Netanyahu, and they would like to do certain things with respect to Syria, having to do with the safety of Israel. So in that respect, we absolutely would like to work in order to help Israel, and Israel would be working with us, so both countries would work jointly. And I think that when you look at all of the progress that's been made in certain sections with the eradication of ISIS. We're about 98%, 99% there, and other things that have taken place that we've done, and that, frankly, Russia has helped us with in certain respects. But I think that working with Israel is a great thing, and creating safety for Israel is something that both President Putin and I would like to see very much. One little thing I might add to that is the helping of people, because you have such horrible, if you see, and I've seen reports and I've seen pictures, I've seen just about everything. And if we can do something to help the people of Syria get back into some form of shelter and on a humanitarian basis, and that's what the word was, really, a humanitarian basis. I think that both of us would be very interested in doing that, and we will do that. Okay? Thank you very much.
Excuse me, but for now, no specific agreements, for instance, between the militaries?
Well, our militaries do get along. In fact, our militaries actually have gotten along probably better than our political leaders for years, but our militaries do get along very well, and they do coordinate in Syria and other places. Okay? Thank you.
Yes, we did mention this. We mentioned the humanitarian track of this issue. Yesterday, I discussed this with French President Mr. Macron, and we reached an agreement that together with European countries, including France, we will step up this effort. On our behalf, we provide military cargo aircraft to deliver the humanitarian cargo. And today I brought up this issue with President Trump. I think there is plenty of things to look into. The crucial thing here is that a huge amount of refugees are in Turkey, in Lebanon, in Jordan, in the states that border are adjacent to Syria. If we help them, the migratory pressure upon the European states will be decreased manifold. And I believe it's crucial from any point of view, from humanitarian point of view, from the point of view of helping people, helping the refugees. And in general, I agree, I concur with President Trump. Our military cooperate quite successfully together. They do get along, and I hope they will be able to do so in future. We will keep working in the Astana format, I mean Russia, Turkey, and Iran, which I informed President Trump about. But we do stand ready to link these efforts to the so-called small group of states, so that the process would be a broader one, it would be a multidimensional one, and so that we will be able to maximize our fighting chance to get the ultimate success in the issue of Syria. And speaking about having the ball in our court in Syria, President Trump has just mentioned that we've successfully concluded the World Football Cup. Speaking of the football, actually, Mr. President, I'll give this ball to you, and now the ball is in your court. All the more that the United States will host the World Cup in 2026.
Thank you very much. We do host it, and we hope we do as good a job. That's very nice. That will go to my son, Barron. We have no question. In fact, Melania, here you go. Okay.
The final question from the United States will go to Jonathan Lemire from the AP.
Thank you. Question for each president. President Trump,
yes.
You first. Just now, President Putin denied having anything to do with the election interference in 2016. Every U.S. intelligence agency has concluded that Russia did. My first question for you, sir, is who do you believe? My second question is, would you now, with the whole world watching, tell President Putin, would you denounce what happened in 2016, and would you warn him to never do it again?
So let me just say that we have two thoughts. You have groups that are wondering why the FBI never took the server. Haven't they taken the server? Why was the FBI told to leave the office of the Democratic National Committee. I've been wondering that. I've been asking that for months and months, and I've been tweeting it out and calling it out on social media. Where is the server? I want to know, where is the server, and what is the server saying? With that being said, all I can do is ask the question. My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be, but I really do want to see the server. But I have confidence in both parties. I really believe that this will probably go on for a while, but I don't think it can go on without finding out what happened to the server. What happened to the servers of the Pakistani gentleman that worked on the DNC? Where are those servers? They're missing. Where are they? What happened to Hillary Clinton's emails? 33,000 emails gone, just gone. I think in Russia they wouldn't be gone so easily. I think it's a disgrace that we can't get Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails. So I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today. And what he did is an incredible offer. He offered to have the people working on the case come and work with their investigators with respect to the 12 people. I think that's an incredible offer. Okay? Thank you. Yes, please.
I'd like to add something to this. After all, I was an intelligence officer myself. And I do know how dossiers are made up. Just a second. That's the first thing. Now the second thing. I believe that Russia is a democratic state, and I hope you're not denying this right to your own country. You're not denying that United States is a democracy. Do you believe United States is a democracy? And if so, if it is a democratic state, then the final conclusion in this kind of a dispute can only be delivered by a trial, by the court, not by the executive, by the law enforcement. For instance, the Concord company that was brought up is being accused. It's being accused of interference. But this company does not constitute the Russian state. It does not represent the Russian state. And I brought several examples before. Well, you have a lot of individuals in the United States. Take George Soros, for instance, with multi-billion capitals. But does that make him his position, his posture, the posture of the United States? No, it does not. Well, it's the same case. There is the issue of trying a case in the court, and the final say is for the court to deliver. We are now talking about the private, the individuals, and not about particular states. And as far as the most recent allegation is concerned about the Russian intelligence officers, we do have an intergovernmental treaty. Please do send us the request. We will analyze it properly and we'll send a formal response. And as I said, we can extend this cooperation, but we should do it on a reciprocal basis, because we would await our Russian counterparts to provide us access to the persons of interest for us, who we believe can have something to do with the intelligence services. Let's discuss the specific issues and not use the Russia and the U.S. relationship as a loose change for this internal political struggle.
A question for President Putin. Thank you. Two questions for you, sir. Can you tell me what President Trump may have indicated to you about officially recognizing Crimea as part of Russia? And then secondly, sir, does the Russian government have any compromising material on President Trump or his family?
President Trump and, posture of President Trump on Crimea is well known, and he stands firmly by it. He continued to maintain that it was illegal to annex it. Our viewpoint is different. We held a referendum in strict compliance with the UN Charter and the international legislation. For us, this issue, we put paid to this issue. And now to the compromising material. Yeah, I did heard these rumors that we allegedly collected compromising material on Mr. Trump when he was visiting Moscow. Well, distinguished colleague, let me tell you this. When President Trump visited Moscow back then, I didn't even know that he was in Moscow. I treat President Trump with utmost respect. But back then, when he was a private individual, a businessman, nobody informed me that he was in Moscow. Well, let's take St. Petersburg Economic Forum, for instance. There were over 500 American businessmen, the high-ranking, the high-level ones. I don't even remember the last names of each and every one of them. Well, do you think that we try to collect compromising material on each and every single one of them? Well, it's difficult to imagine another nonsense of a bigger scale than this. Well, please just disregard these issues and don't think about this anymore again.
It was a disgrace to our country, and you would say that was a total witch hunt. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow. Bombshell joint press conference from President Trump and President Putin. It just kept getting better in time. Alex Jones is about to go live right now. The Alex Jones Show starts at 11 a.m. Central here. That's 2 minutes from now, live from the InfoWars World Headquarters in Austin, Texas. We're getting the clips. Alex is going to be breaking that down. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. I've got a bunch of notes here that I want to get into. I can't believe some of the stuff. Let's start with President Putin. Okay, first he says, and I'm just going over my notes here. First, he talks about the tension between Russia and the United States, and he basically says it's fake news, it's old news. In fact, he said the world is a different place now. Trump echoed that same sentiment in his monologue. So they're both kind of in agreement that United States, Russia not getting along is kind of fake news, and they should be beyond that by now, and they're going to end the whole Cold War era treatment of United States-Russia relations. You then had Putin talk about Syria. Now, they didn't go into too much detail there. They both talked about Syria, talking about its complex. Trump said he wants to save hundreds of thousands of lives there. So, again, though, this is what I said coming in, that Syria is going to be a major piece in the United States-Russia relations, and it looks like that's going to be something positive moving forward. Putin threw shade at former United States presidents. He denied the Mueller-Rosenstein claims of Russian hacking, collusion, what have you. He talked about cultural cooperation between the United States and Russia. Cultural cooperation, to me, that means being nationalist, being pro-human, common sense, border control, stuff like that. And he always said how positive the meeting was. He kept saying positive, positive, positive. He has put pressure now on Robert Mueller to, well, let me just put it to you this way. He responds to the latest accusations of Russian hacking from Mueller's indictments by saying, we will cooperate in this investigation, and we will even sit down and engage with you to discover the facts about this investigation. Now, just jumping to Trump real quick. Trump says he wants to see the servers. So you've got all of the DNC servers and the DCCC servers that Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hillary Clinton did everything to make sure that the FBI couldn't get a hold of them, smashing them, bleach bidding them, just denying them, whatever. So for Robert Mueller to reach the conclusion of Russian hacking without actually investigating the servers is obviously the big question. Trump calls it out. Putin says we're willing to investigate with you. So now all the pressure is on Robert Mueller, that little rat. And what is he going to do now? Because the last card that he played with the indictments, he got called out in court. He didn't show up. Mueller's going to be totally exposed. This summit has just set up Robert Mueller to be totally exposed. They denied discovery from the original indictments. They're going to deny discovery from the latest indictments because they don't have the servers. And they're going to deny a cooperative investigation with Russia. Robert Mueller is toast. He's got nothing. And now that Trump and Putin have a good relationship, and Putin has said he'll work with Mueller, Mueller's toast. He's done. And the Russian probe, the grains of sand, are now starting to fall through to the other side. And Trump said he thinks it's going to go on for a while, but there's a timer on it now. The Russians are going to demand discovery. The Russians are going to offer to investigate. Mueller's going to walk away with his tail between his legs. And the Democrats and their street minion sheeple are still going to believe it. Wow. But it won't matter. It won't matter, just like it hasn't thus far. Okay, and then final bombshell from Putin. Again, you know, this organization is so Tomorrow News Today, it's not even funny. Where people that aren't even on air, people who don't even go on air, are more informed and know more about what's going on than 90% of the people you see on television. I had one of our great producers here telling me to report on Bill Browder over a year ago. And I kind of saw the stuff, but it wasn't really breaking, and it wasn't really viral, and it would mostly fall upon deaf ears. I think Lee Stranahan may have reported on Bill Browder. But Browder comes into the mainstream news this week on Sunday on the Alex Jones Show. Or no, that was Friday. On the Alex Jones Show Friday, I told you Bill Browder is making the rounds on television media to demonize Putin, demonize Trump, and bring himself up as the hero. He's a total fraud. He's the one that's now been caught red-handed, and that's what Putin said today. So now Bill Browder is on the chopping block. Get ready for that. That total fraud. That's like George Soros Jr. And then he hits George Soros. Wow. Now all those clips are going to be on the Alex Jones Show. Let's move over to Trump. Trump again, saying it was very positive. Trump again, saying this is where him and Putin are echoing each other, saying this is a different time than the Cold War. The old Russia relationship, that's over and done with now. We can have a good relationship moving forward. Let's see here. You know, he keeps mentioning dialogue being the answer and not disagreement. And I'm thinking about this. What other presidents actually have fruitful dialogue? Other than with Iran, who did President Obama really have a fruitful dialogue with? Where was the diplomacy for Obama? Where was it for Bush? I mean, honestly, it was pretty much non-existent. Because think about it. You're going to remember the Trump-Kim summit forever. You're going to remember the Trump-Putin summit forever. What was Obama ever a part of a historical summit? Anything? Bueller? What about a Bush summit? What, was Saudi Arabia or something? Bueller? These are failures. These are losers. These are phonies. Trump is actually doing it. And so that one really hit home for me. And he said, quote, consequences when diplomacy is left on the table. That's what it's been for years. There was no diplomacy with Obama. There's no diplomacy with Bush. What diplomacy with Clinton? Selling all of our nuclear secrets to the Chinese so eventually the North Koreans can get them? Yeah. Trump is having real diplomacy, genuine diplomacy with these world leaders, and you're seeing the fruits. Nothing for Obama. Zero. Name a historical Obama summit. Nothing. He says that the U.S.-Russia relations had been the worst ever, but now it's changed, positive moving forward. He said he would rather risk politics for peace than peace for politics. Oh my gosh, that is... See, this is why it's so key. You have all of these politicians that are basically invertebrate, and because they're spineless, they will do whatever they think will endear them to the media or endear them to the public. There is no real ground that they stand on. It's like shifting sand, whichever way the wind goes. So because of that, they sacrifice peace for politics all the time. And to echo more about that, and to go off on a jag here, you see, other presidents like Obama and Bush and Clinton, and they are all perfect examples of this, would use the military and proxy wars to cover up for their own messes. That is the truth of the issue. These were failed, corrupt politicians that created disasters around the world that they then used the military to cover them up. Trump doesn't do that, folks. Trump's the real deal. He meets with these people. He talks with these people. He cares. He has diplomacy. He doesn't have messes to cover up because of some foreign agenda or big special donor needed them to get done. Trump doesn't have these messes to clean up, so he doesn't have to use the military as his mop and broom, if you will, unlike Bush and Obama. And that's the big key when he talks about leaving diplomacy on the table. He's not doing that, and he's not going to risk peace for politics. They talked about the Russian hacking scandal, both denying it, calling it fake news. Trump then goes hard, demands discovery, essentially before the representation of the Russians will. Trump demands discovery, said, let's see the servers, let's see them investigated, let's investigate the Iwans, let's investigate the Clinton emails. Of course, here's the rub. Trump already knows all of this. He's just like injecting it out there into the zeitgeist so that people can kind of get to know it before the bombshells actually drop. He talks about wanting to meet with Putin more often. Oh, he slammed Peter Strzok. He talked about a joint effort to stop radical Islam with with Putin and Russia. And again, I'm not sure if Putin wanted to keep this close to his chest, but Trump came out and said it, that the Russians have offered to work with United States intelligence to discover what happened with the servers and the hacking and how it all went down. Wow. So those are the brief first response takeaways here from myself at InfoWars, as we have been live here since 4 a.m. covering the Trump-Putin summit. They just concluded their joint press conference at the presidential palace in Finland at Helsinki. And wow, what happens next? Okay, here's what to look for. First of all, Alex Jones is live, so tune into the Alex Jones channel on YouTube. Second of all, just get ready for the fake news to start rolling out. Oh, baby. Let me tell you something. With a press conference that powerful with Trump and Putin, the fake news is going to be livid because they look so stupid. And they're going to once again activate their minions and sheeple to go out into the streets and foment a bunch of violence based on lies. So that's where we're at now. So tune over to the Alex Jones Show, Infowars.com/show. Please support us at InfoWarsStore.com. That's how these extended live broadcast specials are possible. Huge specials right now at InfoWarsStore.com. And watch for the response from the mainstream news. This is almost going to be as good. I'm telling you, the most entertaining response I ever saw from liberal news and just liberals on Twitter was from the Judge Kavanaugh nomination. Once they get their eyes and ears upon this press conference, they are going to go insane. and they already have. So this is going to be very entertaining. All right, for Michael Zimmerman, for Rob Dew, they made it possible for you out there that support us at InfoWarsStore.com. You make it possible. I sign off this special broadcast. I may be jumping into the seat with Alex Jones here, so tune into the Alex Jones Show. Thanks for tuning in. You stay classy, Info Warriors.
Hey guys, my name is Savannah Hernandez, and if you're always on the go like me, then you're not always tied to your computer or TV. So we just released our free InfoWars official app. The InfoWars official app includes all of our live broadcasts like War Room with Owen Schroyer, Real News with David Knight, and the holy grail of podcast and radio, The Alex Jones Show. And the best part about the InfoWars official app is that every single time we go live, you get notifications so that you never miss a beat. The InfoWars official app integrates some of the most up-to-date news stories, reports, and specials from the InfoWarsStore.com. So whether you're in the car or on a run, this app makes it easy to keep the InfoWar right in your pocket. So what are you waiting for? Download the InfoWar official app for tomorrow's news today for free from the Apple Store or in Google Play.